Welcome back to Special Educators Resource Room Podcast. I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Super excited for this episode topic. Way back in episode 145, we talked about planning for an inclusion lesson, and I got some great feedback. Thank you so much. Today, we're going to get really practical. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty, how to differentiate a math lesson. I'm going to use a Eureka Math lesson for first grade. We're going to talk about how we can do this without doing a ton of extra work. I know that sounds bold, but it's not about doing more. It's about doing things smarter. So if you've ever looked at a gen ed lesson plan and thought, I cannot teach this as written, of course, you are not alone. We're going to be walking through how to differentiate Eureka Math Grade 1. I'm going to be picking Module 1, Lesson 30. We're going to talk about it step by step in a way that's going to support all of your students without burning you out. So whether you are in a self-contained classroom setting or co-teaching in the gen ed inclusion classroom, or maybe you are just flying solo with your 12 IEPs and no planning time, this one is for you. First, let's start off with a brief summary of what this lesson is all about. So this lesson is pretty much a review day. It's designed to reinforce using addition and subtraction strategies within 10, using number bonds and tape diagrams. And it should feel like a wrap-up, but depending on students you're working with, it can feel more like a mountain of math, not a review day. So here's how I would make it work. Number 1, I would start with pre-teaching. So before this lesson would even start, I would take a look at what concepts it's reinforcing. In this case, it's number bonds, making 10, and understanding part-whole relationships. I know we said it was a review, but I also know that a few students might still be very shaky on number bonds. So I might poll them for a quick math warm-up the day before. We might be using connecting cubes or number bond cards, something visual, something tactile to review the concept before they're going to see it in the math group lesson. Pre-teaching doesn't have to be a full-blown intervention. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 5 cubes. It could be, let's build the number 7 together. That could be enough. This is giving students a mental hook, something that we can attach future learning to. Moving on to step 2, adjusting whole group instruction without scrapping it. Now it's time to deliver the actual lesson, the concept development. We don't want to throw it out. Well, maybe we do, but instead we're going to tweak it. Eureka Math often gives these long, drawn-out sample teacher scripts, and if we used them, our students would be asleep. So instead, we're going to take that script and we're going to adjust the pacing, and we're going to add visuals. For example, if we're reviewing number bonds with number 9, you could show it on the board, but you immediately also want to model it. Maybe you're modeling it with magnetic counters, or you're using your whiteboard and you're drawing it out slowly as you're talking it through. You're adding a think aloud. I see 9 as the whole. Let's break it into 2 parts. Let's try 6 and 3. Does that make 9? You're slowing the process down, but you're not changing it. You're not reducing the load. You're not changing the number 9. And if you know students are going to get lost the minute you mention the word diagram, you can say, diagram is just a math drawing. Watch how I draw this. That little reframe can do wonders. Number 3, cut down on the number of problems without lowering the bar. This one's important because we're not going to be giving lesser work. We're giving less work. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever used Eureka before, but they use this teeny tiny font on their worksheets, and you wonder, have you ever met a child? But that's okay. We're going to make this work. Maybe there's 6 problems with similar objectives on a Eureka worksheet. You can choose 3. But you want to make sure that they hit the different skills. Maybe one is a basic number bond, one uses the tape diagram, and one asks students to explain their thinking. Students are still doing the thinking part, but we're reducing repetition that isn't going to be meaningful for their progress. Yes, we would love to do it all, but we also know we're working within a attention time span. You can give students the full worksheet, but you can just highlight the problems you want them to focus on. That way they're building stamina without feeling buried. We're about halfway through. Let's quickly recap. Number 1, we talked about pre-teaching. Maybe it's math vocabulary students are going to be hearing again, or maybe it's just a quick math warm-up, something that we can attach future learning to. Number 2, wanted to take a look at the whole group lesson and see how we can make it more interactive. Where can we add hands-on learning? Where can we add visuals? Number 3, we wanted to take a look at the workload that students are going to be doing and seeing where we can do less, not lesser, not lowering the bar, but just doing less work. We want to pick out work that's going to be representative of what students are doing and maybe cut out some that are repeaters. And yes, we know repetition is key, but we also need to get through this lesson. We can find other ways to provide that extra repetition and practice. Moving on to number 4, add hands-on practice where it actually helps. So we're not going to be able to turn every lesson into a hands-on center, but I am going to be looking for places where tactile practice is going to help clarify a concept. So if students are reviewing making 10, you might want to hand out 10 frames and counters before they put pencil to paper. Let students move, let them build, let them draw what they made. Then the worksheet instead becomes a recording sheet. It's not the only teaching tool. Moving on to number 5, ask better questions during the lesson. You can pre-plan these. Differentiation isn't always about the materials. It can be about the questions that we ask. So if a student finishes early or seems unsure, we're not going to say, check your work. You could ask, how did you get your answer? What part did you know right away? Can you show that a different way? These questions are going to nudge students to reflect and explain. You don't need a whole nother worksheet or another activity. You can use what's already in front of you and ask better questions. Now, you might think, my students are not ready to verbalize any of that. Those questions are way above them. That's okay. You can always keep it real simple. What is the whole? What are the parts? Looking at this, what do we already know? Scaffolding with language is going to help build understanding. Maybe your students aren't ready for this language, but they can borrow yours. They can repeat after you. If this is brand new, you may want to plan these questions ahead of time and look at that lesson. Identify where common misconceptions can occur. And number 6, the last step for differentiating a Gen Ed lesson plan. Add some type of independent work component using task boxes, file folders, work binders. This is for support and for progress monitoring because we know students are going to need extra time with these concepts. There's going to be other students who are working on prerequisite skills that the rest of the class may already have. This is where your independent work system is really going to come in to help. So you could pull a task, a file folder, a binder page that aligns with the skill or even the skill before this lesson. So if their Eureka Math lesson is on number bonds to 10 and a student is still working on counting with one-to-one correspondence, you can grab a task box to reinforce that prerequisite skill. These activities aren't going to be just for review. They can be part of your daily math block, and they can be used for reinforcing that Gen Ed lesson in a hands-on way. They could be used to target a specific skill gap with a related independent task, or they can be used to collect data during centers or small group time. For me, we made these hands-on tools part of every lesson. I would teach the whole group concept development, and then I'd want to pull smaller groups. So some students might be working on independent tasks while I'm pulling a small group for more intervention, and then we would rotate. And the good news is we already had an independent work system in place. So these things were already prepped. I wasn't creating anything brand new. I was using what was already built. Because this lesson isn't about making more materials or rewriting an entire program. It's about working with the lesson for you and your students. You want to look for ways to front load concepts. You might be simplifying not the actual lesson, but how it's delivered. And then, of course, we're adding supports that don't feel like a ton of extra work. There's also a compound effect taking place. Once you start putting these supports in place, you can reuse them and build upon them. Number bonds, students are going to be seeing those all year long. One important note I forgot to mention, I would not be rewriting these lesson plans. Instead, I would be taking the Gen Ed lesson plan, like a copy from the copy machine, and I'd just be highlighting the vocabulary, the important points I want to pull out, circling the ones we're going to do, maybe crossing out the ones we're not going to do, adding a sticky note here and there. That's it. I'm writing directly on that copy. No reinventing the wheel, putting it into my own format. That would be lovely, but we don't have time like that. You've got this. If you're teaching Eureka Math or any scripted program, just know you are the expert in the room. You get to make it work for your students. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If this was helpful, I would appreciate it if you leave a quick review and share it with another teacher. Also, don't forget to drop your suggestion using the quick podcast form linked in the show notes. I'll see you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.